You know, we always picture the end of the world like some big Hollywood sci-fi movie. But today, we're going to shatter that illusion and look at the real, terrifying natural threats sleeping right beneath our feet. Forget the cinematic meteor strikes for a minute. Today, we're looking inward, at our very own planet.
Are aliens gonna end it all? Let's be real and just toss out the alien invasion scripts for a second, because science tells us that the real ticking time bombs are native to our own world. We spend so much time looking up at the stars wondering what might come down to destroy us, but the Earth itself harbors geological and climatic monsters of unimaginable scale.
So in this explainer, we're looking at four massive sleeping threats: the Doomsday Glacier, the Yellowstone supervolcano, the La Palma mega tsunami, the melting permafrost, and the destruction that is actually already underway.
Four sleeping threats of Earth. And guys, these aren't just spooky campfire stories. These are scientifically confirmed events absolutely capable of wiping out human life. Part 2, Doomsday Glacier and Rising Oceans. Let's kick things off with the massive Thwaites Glacier down in West Antarctica.
To really wrap your head around the scale of this monster, get this. At over a kilometer deep in some spots, this solid block of ice stretches further down into the ocean than the absolute tip of the Burj Khalifa reaches up into the sky. It's just a staggering, almost incomprehensible amount of frozen water.
And it's not just deep, the width is honestly just as terrifying. Covering roughly 192,000 square kilometers, this glacier is so unbelievably massive that you could comfortably fit 318 cities the size of Mumbai, or, about 50 Karachis, right inside its borders. It's the widest glacier on the planet right now, and it is holding back, literally, an ocean of trouble.
So the question really isn't if it's going to break, but when. The structural integrity of this ice is seriously compromised because the bedrock underneath it slopes downward. Warm ocean waters have actually hollowed it out 14 kilometers inward just since 1992. For scientists, its collapse is an absolute certainty, not just a possibility. The foundation is literally being eaten away from the bottom up. Right, so what happens when it goes? If Thwaites collapses, it essentially pulls the cork out of the bottle for the entire West Antarctic ice sheet. We're talking a devastating global sea level rise of about 3 meters, or roughly 10 feet. That plunges over 1 billion people in major economic hubs, like Mumbai, New York, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Dhaka, into an absolute nightmare of tsunamis, extreme hurricanes, and permanent, irreversible flooding.
Moving on to part 3, fear of the Yellowstone supervolcano. This is a literal ticking time bomb right in America's Wyoming state. It's home to a massive 70 by 50 kilometer crater that isn't just some scenic mountain, it is a fully active supervolcano sitting on top of an ocean of liquid magma. And the geological timeline here reveals a pretty chilling pattern, erupting roughly every 600,000 to 700,000 years, and with the last massive eruption happening 640,000 years ago, Yellowstone is scientifically primed to blow within the next 60,000 years. The timer is absolutely ticking, and we are officially in the active window. When it finally does blow, everything in an immediate 1,000-kilometer radius is going to be instantly vaporized, but the real nightmare is global. It triggers this devastating domino effect. Billions of tons of volcanic ash and sulfur dioxide shoot into the atmosphere, creating dense clouds that completely block out the sun for years. Global temperatures plummet worldwide, acid rain falls instead of fresh water, and crops everywhere experience total failure. It's what we call a volcanic winter. The terrifying conclusion of this chain reaction is the total collapse of our food chain. If Yellowstone erupted today, experts estimate that extreme starvation, freezing temperatures, and widespread disease could wipe out up to 70% of the world's population. It's a true extinction-level event, just sleeping quietly beneath a national park. Part 4, the mega tsunami of La Palma. Over in the Canary Islands, there's a collapsing mountain harboring a really dark secret, a 6,000-foot-high fault line that is completely unstable and just waiting to snap. Can a mountain actually swallow the ocean? Well, it sounds impossible, kind of like an ancient myth, right? But an eruption here could actually cause a colossal chunk of the island, literally a massive mountain of rock, to shear completely off its base and plummet directly into the deep waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Think about the sheer physics of this for a second. When that fault line gives way, 500 billion tons of solid rock will slide down into the sea at speeds hitting 250 kilometers per hour. That immense, violent displacement of water will send an initial splash a full kilometer high into the atmosphere. From there, colossal waves are going to radiate outward, traveling 4,000 miles in every single direction. This mega tsunami will surge relentlessly across the Atlantic Ocean, devastating the coastlines of the Americas, Europe, and Africa. On the U.S. East Coast alone, cities like Miami and Orlando could be slammed by waves over 100 feet tall, tearing miles deep inland completely unannounced. Normal evacuation protocols simply wouldn't have enough time to save everyone. It would be an absolute catastrophe. All right, Part 5, Permafrost, the melting deep freezer. Our final threat doesn't violently erupt or crash. Instead, it quietly, slowly thaws. Now, permafrost isn't just some small patch of ice. Encompassing half of Canada, 2/3 of Russia, and the massive Tibetan Plateau, an astonishing 11% of our entire planet's surface is covered by this permanently frozen ground. It's a vast, unseen landscape holding tightly onto the Earth's past. By definition, permafrost is ground that remains at or below 0 degrees Celsius for at least 2 consecutive years, though, most of it has been frozen for millennia. For millions of years, this ground has acted as the ultimate pause button on biological decomposition, keeping prehistoric organic matter perfectly preserved in the ice, exactly as it was when it died. And here's why this matters so much right now. As global warming deepens the summer melt, the active layer of this permafrost expands. Ancient bacteria wake up and start feasting on that newly thawed organic matter. As they digest, they release carbon and methane. In fact, there is 4 times more carbon trapped inside this permafrost than in all of our current global pollution combined. Let that sink in for a moment. This kicks off an unstoppable apocalyptic feedback loop. The thawing releases methane, a crazy potent greenhouse gas, which could spike global temperatures by a staggering 8 degrees Celsius. A heat wave of that magnitude would melt all the remaining glaciers, raise sea levels by 5 meters, destroy global freshwater supplies, and literally make the Earth's equator completely uninhabitable for humans. Which brings us to Part 6, the destruction that's already begun. Because guys, this disaster isn't some distant future prediction. It is unfolding right now, right beneath our feet. You don't even have to look at complex computer models to see it. You can literally watch the Earth sinking and tearing open. In Siberia, the massive Bottigiega crater is actively expanding every single year. As the deep ice holding the ground together turns to water, the Earth just collapses in on itself, creating these massive expanding scars on the planet's surface. The scary truth is, we've pushed this system way past the point of no return. Even if humanity miraculously stopped using all fossil fuels today, it's scientifically impossible to reverse this thawing trend. Current models show that within the next 50 to 70 years, 70% of the world's permafrost will just be gone, releasing all of its ancient toxic breath right into our atmosphere. From collapsing megaglaciers and supervolcanoes to island-shattering tsunamis and melting ancient freezers, these incredible geological forces really remind us of nature's true, unyielding power. We can track them, sure, we can study them, but we absolutely cannot stop them. Which leaves us with one final, haunting question. As the clock ticks down on these sleeping monsters, how will humanity possibly adapt when they finally, inevitably, wake up?